I know what it's like to feel stuck in life, to be in a situation you don't want to be in, and yet it seems there's no path forward or no way out. I know the frustration, the hopelessness, the despair, the restless pacing back and forth in your own head, trying to figure out what to do. And what I noticed was that whenever I was feeling stuck, my whole attention would be so consumed by the problem that there was really no room for a solution. I would be so focused on what I couldn't do, on what felt unfair or impossible or overwhelming, that my perception was too small and too narrow to see beyond the problem. And there is a usefulness in thinking about a problem, in recognizing it, in understanding how it came about. Because oftentimes, if you can see what gave rise to the problem, that's often where you find the solution. However, that's not always the case. Sometimes the solution has to come from someplace else. And at a certain point, we can go from simply analyzing a problem to obsessing over it. And that doesn't bring about clarity. It actually clouds our perception, making it much more difficult to see. While it might seem as if we're simply re-examining the problem to see if there might be something we overlooked, what's usually happening is that we're caught in a loop. We've already gone over it so many times that we're not coming up with any new information. We're just replaying the same information over and over again. And that loop takes up so much mental and emotional space that there's no room for anything new to appear. And so, in order to be able to find a solution, we need to look beyond the problem. Now, I want to be clear about what I'm suggesting here. I'm not suggesting that we ignore the problem. What I'm suggesting is that we expand our awareness beyond the boundaries of the problem, so that your awareness is big enough to hold the problem without being consumed by it. And in that spaciousness, we might have the clarity to see a solution, to see a path forward or a way out that was previously obscured. And this is where mindfulness can be incredibly helpful, because mindfulness is essentially about cultivating greater clarity by noticing what's happening in the moment without getting entangled in it. When you feel stuck, you feel frustrated. You might feel anxious or hopeless. And your nervous system tends to be in overdrive, all of which clouds our perception. And so mindfulness can help to regulate our emotions, to calm our nervous system, to slow things down, to help everything to soften and settle, to open up space, and to allow for greater clarity. And sometimes this can be as simple as just taking a moment to close your eyes and take a few slow, deep breaths, and to just feel the fullness of the breath filling your body and the sensation of relaxation that comes with each exhalation. And by breathing mindfully in this way, even for just a minute, it can help bring both the mind and the body into a more relaxed state. Now, it might not always be a total relaxation, and you may not have total clarity regarding the entire situation, but you might have just enough clarity to see some small opening that you couldn't see before, to see some potential action that you could take to move in the direction you want to go. You don't have to be able to see the entire path all laid out before you. As the saying goes, as you walk, the path will appear, which means that you don't need to focus on solving everything all at once. You just need to focus on taking one small step at a time. And that's really the key. Instead of focusing all your attention on what seems to be beyond your control, just find one small thing that you still have influence over. One small thing that you can do to move forward, even if it's only a short distance. And though it may not seem like much, that's how you build momentum. You start with one step and then another. And from there, you just keep moving. Even if you can't see what's ahead, even if you have no certainty where you might wind up, it will probably still get you closer to where you want to be. Now, there's an important nuance here, and I want to be very careful with this. Sometimes when it feels like we're in a situation that we can do nothing at all to change, it can often be that our perception is simply too narrow or too limited in that moment to see beyond the problem. In other words, just because we don't see a way out doesn't mean there isn't one. However, there may also be situations that we truly cannot change, and it does us no good to hold on to the hope that we can. Sometimes we simply have to accept the situation as it is and just try to make the best of it. And now you might be wondering, how can we know the difference? And that's a great question, but not a question that can be easily answered. I think what is most important is to turn our attention to the one place where we truly have control, and that is how we respond to the situation. You see, regardless of whether or not the outer circumstances are firm and unchangeable, your inner state is much more flexible. We can always change the way we look at things. We can change how we respond. We can change where we place our focus. And we can choose whether or not to accept the situation. And the thing to understand about acceptance is that it doesn't necessarily mean resignation. It simply means we stop resisting the reality we're faced with. It means that we accept the situation as it is in this moment while still remaining open to the possibility of change. Acceptance doesn't mean closing ourselves off to that possibility. In fact, acceptance actually opens us up, because when we're in resistance, that's when we tend to be consumed by the problem. That's when everything is contracted. That's when we tend to get caught in the belief that there is nothing we can do. But when you come into acceptance, it's like everything relaxes and opens up. And in that openness, you might see something you didn't see before. You might see an opportunity. You might see a way forward. Or you might just see the possibility of something more. And if you don't, that is, if all you see is that the situation truly cannot be changed, by having accepted it, you still reduce your suffering significantly, because so much of our suffering is simply due to our resistance to the way things are. So if you're feeling stuck right now, here's what I'd suggest. First of all, acknowledge whatever you may be feeling in the moment, whether it's frustration, exhaustion, anxiety, or anger. Whatever you feel, don't minimize it. Don't deny it. Don't try to stuff it down. Allow yourself the space to feel it. And this is where mindfulness can be really helpful, because mindfulness means being present with whatever is occurring in the moment. And in this case, we can be present with our emotions. we can take a moment to slow down and just breathe, and to allow space for our emotions to move through us without getting entangled, without being consumed by them. Just allowing a space to expand around the emotion. And this space allows our emotions to soften, to settle, and perhaps be released, all of which leads to greater clarity. And this also creates in us an openness. It gives us room to move and to breathe. And it allows us to be open to the possibility that there may be opportunities available to us that we just don't yet see.